Okie dokie, folks. Welcome back to another edition of Monday Night Shaw. Last week we would have had Noller Bear on here, and this week we have Dez the Eskimofo, another wrestler from Totally Arctic Wrestling, way up in the Northwest Territories. And Dez, I'm super stoked and happy that you're here. How you
Hey,
doing?
thanks so much, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. I think that you guys having a territory like so far north is incredible. Like I've heard of like Tony Condello doing the northern tours and stuff, but you guys are even like hours and hours and possibly days even north of that, eh?
Yeah, so we're actually not connected to where they tour in northern Manitoba, but definitely we are farther north, much farther north.
Solid, solid. So how did you get like I assume that you're involved in the owning or the operation of TAW. So how did it come to be? Give me the origin story.
Yeah, so it was actually summer of 2019. Blue Wilder and myself, Wade Blue, we we had an idea that we were going to put on like a wrestling video. I wanted to, I make short films.
Oh, okay,
I'm a
cool.
filmmaker, I'm a writer. So I wanted to make a short film about wrestling. I wanted to do a match. So I said to Blue, I said, what if you and me dressed up? We went to the youth center. They have gym mats on the floor. What if we wrestled a match against each other? Totally, we don't have any training, right? No training at all.
Yeah.
I said, what if we wrestled the match against each other? And then what if we went and we sat and we watched that match at the table and dressed up as costumes and did commentary on our own match? And then dressed up one more time and did the pre-interviews and post-interviews to each other dressed up in different costumes. So then it was like, well, if we're going to do all of this, then why wouldn't, like, what if we just did a real wrestling show? Like, what if we actually did some like actual, like, learn how to wrestle? And that's kind of what Blue went. Blue wanted to be a wrestler, right? Wade Blue wanted to be a wrestler. And I love wrestling. I love performing. I'm a big wrestling fan. But the physicality of it, actually wrestling to me was never the appeal. It was always putting the shows on, meeting the people and getting to like, know everybody and promoting, and booking all the under the bottom, the below the line stuff is what
Mhm.
got me into it. So we said, you know what, man, let's do this right. So we got together, we got one of our buddies put up money, and my brother-in-law sold us a boxing ring.
Oh no.
So we had a
Oh.
boxing ring because it
Ooh.
had ropes, right? We didn't, it was
Yeah.
like, it's like, yo, let's not even look for a ring. Let's just use this boxing ring that we found, and that'll be it. So for the
Yeah,
first,
I just react like that because I've heard horror stories about
oh, yeah,
people I know trying to wrestle in actual boxing rings instead of wrestling rings, and like there's a huge difference. Like a boxing ring has like literally no give to it. You might
yeah.
as well be getting like slammed on the floor, you
And that's
know?
exactly what it is it's a stage that you're not meant to get up from when you fall down. So it's definitely got no give. It's a steel. It was like 3,000 pounds, 2,500 pounds of just iron beams. So there was no give at all. So when we first learned how to wrestle, we brought in Marty Sugar and Ace Redmond Jr. And they taught us how to wrestle on a boxing ring. And we definitely were more about like the registers of it and facial expressions and selling to the crowds than we were, slams and things. So
Yeah, I've wrestled Marty Sugar before, and I've wrestled for his company and stuff. And he's fantastic and great, but I don't think he's really the kind of guy that would teach you like how to do like Canadian destroyers or like
yeah, so
Hurricane
that was,
Ranas
so,
or any X Division style stuff. He's more so like a character based guy. But like
and
I
that
feel
was
like
it.
yeah, and I just like I say though, I feel like up north where there is no wrestling, like that stuff probably gets like really over. You know what I mean?
And that's it. That's what we found out right away, was that we're not looking at smart crowds here in the sense of oversaturated pro wrestling crowds that know the industry and they're watching TV every week. And they're, like when you go to an indie show, anywhere in North America, there's a lot of guys that are working really hard to outdo each other because you're working with a crowd that wants to see more. They're working with a
Mhm.
crowd that wants to see faster paced stuff, bigger moves, like you said, destroyers, flips, ranas, that sort of stuff, dives. But with us, it was very green, very new territory. So it was almost like going back in time where it's like, put that vice grip on him. You know what I mean? Make him scream in pain, and these kids will react. So it's been a lot of fun. I think it's the coolest thing though has definitely been getting in front of the kids. I think getting the families involved. I got one message at our last big show we did here in Inuvik, and a guy I know who has a kid said, "Hey man, congratulations." He said, "I've never seen my son on the edge of his seat in the 8 years that he's been alive, and tonight he was there. So you guys reached him." And it's like it's those little interactions. It's the
Yeah.
little interactions.
That's always solid, and then, like, I mean, I get messages, like, from people from time to time telling me that I'm their favorite wrestler or whatever, and
Yeah,
I'm absolutely, like, flattered by it every time because, like, I'm also not one of those guys that does a lot of, like, I mean, I could do a Hurricanrana, but I generally don't, you know, and I've definitely never done a Canadian destroyer. Um, I my bread and butter is honk honk honk, so
yeah,
I love doing that kind of goofy character stuff. But anytime like I see somebody like there is definitely a few people that have come up to me and said, "Oh, you're my favorite wrestler," or "You're my kid's favorite wrestler,"
yeah.
and it's always like super super like flattering for sure.
Well, it's super
Makes you
cool. We were on the Death Tour last year. I was on the TCW Death Tour last winter, and the little boy came up to me after my first. This was my first match ever working face. Like here in TAW, I'm very much the bad guy. People, I love the booze, right? I love the booze. Kids will come up to me. They'll weeks and months after a show. Hey, you're a cheater. What's up? You can't win, and stuff. I love it. So on the Death Tour, I worked face for the first time, and after the match, I was like high fiving kids and whatever, and kids were running up for autographs, and one kid is like, "You're my favorite wrestler," and I legit just said to this kid, "I'm like, thank you very much, but you need to watch a lot more wrestling, kid, or just some wrestling, because I
that,
guarantee you, you watch
that,
one wrestling program, and I will not be your favorite wrestler anymore."
So, can you tell me, like, because like I've never done the Tony Condello Death Tour either, but what would be the difference between like a Condello Death Tour and a show that's happening, say, up in Tuck?
Oh well, so I mean, the Death Tour, geographically, I mean, there isn't a whole lot of difference. You know what I mean? I think we're looking at a community of a few hundred people. We're performing in a gym for them. The kids don't get entertainment. It's very much parallel in that regard. The only difference between what we do and the Candello tours is that we have accommodations and we are sleeping at home in beds and we're eating meals. Whereas with Tony, we were sleeping where we can. One night on the tour last time, we had a camp, like an actual workers camp. So we got beds, which was amazing because previously to that, you're sleeping on whatever you bring with you. Shout out to JD Thunder and to Sinister Sister. They brought air mattresses and they brought a whole setup with them, so they were more comfortable. Myself, I was just literally the day after the Chris Jericho cruise. My suitcase went to Edmonton and my flight was delayed. So I was supposed to get in and go to Walmart and be able to get an air mattress and all this kind of stuff. That didn't end up happening for me. So I had to get ready for 5 a.m. And my buddy Justin in Winnipeg lent me a sleeping bag. He lent me a duffel bag with underwear and socks and long johns and a sweater. He sold me a sweater. He made sure I had just enough to get myself to the first northern store in Cross Lake. And then
Yeah,
I was able to buy myself pants and shoes and a shirt. Like I got off the Jericho cruise in a tank top and cargo shorts. Thank God Justin Sider was there and he gave me a t-shirt. And then that's what got me to Winnipeg. So it was kind of, yeah, a lot.
I've heard that the prices on like food and stuff is like outrageous up there as well. Like that you're better off to bring your own like
A lot of
food
people do. A
and
lot of people
yeah,
brought like boxes of like dry goods foods, and you bring your own, bring a cooler of whatever you can bring, and you just move it fridge to fridge, right, on the tour. Myself, though, from where I'm from, the prices are kind of comparable. So when they were like, "Oh, it's going to be expensive," I was like, "Actually, it's the same prices as back home." So I'm kind of used to this. It wasn't much of a shock for me. So I was able to kind of adapt easily to that. Whereas I could see a lot of the people from down south, from bigger centers, were like, "Yo, we're lucky we brought our food with us because this is not sustainable."
Yeah, yeah, no, like I've heard like $15 for like a can of soda or and like just like really outrageous stuff. Like I mean, no, like it might be you're used to that, but like here it's like, oh, you want a can of Coca Cola? This is $2, you know?
Yeah, so the most we saw for a can of pop was $6. I bought a bottle actually. I bought water, 1 liter bottles of water, and they were $15 a piece.
Yeah.
No, no, sorry, it was $10 a piece for a 1 liter bottle. So I ended up getting these 1 liter bottles. I ended up getting a 15 pack for $150.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, it was pretty wild. Like that's kind of because they have boiled water advisories, right? So you're not drinking
Mhm.
tap water.
No,
So
you don't want to drink bad water. That'll make you very sick.
yeah,
I
yeah,
actually I got really sick like maybe 2 weeks ago. The 5th of February was my birthday. That's how I remember it. But I think it was from drinking the water at the Legion like a couple days before that because I don't know. I've heard some horror stories about that water at the Legion, but I'd never had any issues before. And then on my
right,
birthday, it was I was sick coming out both ends. Like couldn't hold anything inside of my like as soon as I took a sip of water, it was coming out and
yeah,
it was really gnarly. So like yeah, if they had boiled water advisories, like I would recommend that you actually do boil that water or like yeah, like I would gladly pay $15 for a bottle of water than endure that kind of discomfort again because it was
yeah.
really uncomfortable.
But it was
Um,
super cool though because the communities were nice and welcoming. We had people coming up to the schools after the shows, asking if we needed anything. Like one couple, and this is very small towns, right?
mhm,
So the one couple that owns the store actually, their friend came over, and we were like, "Yeah, we missed the store." So she called them up, and they reopened for us, and little things like that really just sort of bridge the gaps because I heard so many horror stories, and I'd seen the little documentaries and the old documentaries on YouTube, and they weren't really that good. And you're watching it, and you're like, "Can I live off of this? Can I live on the floor for a week, two for a month, for 3 weeks?"
mhm,
And you learn that you can do a lot. There's a lot of compromise you do in your life, and you just sort of say, "You know what? I might not be the most comfortable right now, but I can definitely make this work."
yeah.
And showing that grit really pays off, especially when you're on the tour. And I found like I grew so much in that 3 weeks. I wrestled. We did 10 shows over 3 weeks, and I wrestled in 8 of them, and I was really proud of that.
And how was the turnout for the shows and stuff?
Oh man, we were minimum 50 to 100. I'd say 70 people minimum, and maximum over 100. So we were packing gyms. Like, it was
Nice,
really cool. And
solid.
so the cool thing is Tony has it worked out with the bands. So you're not paying tickets at the door. It's literally just free to the community, right? So that every kid is just showing up, and that's what happened. So we're getting out like the pops are crazy. Like it's it was said in the Death Tour documentary that I'm in, but
Mhm.
it's like WrestleMania for these kids. You know, they don't get to
Yeah.
see wrestling except for on TV. So when you show up and there's an actual ring in there, they go wild, man, like wild.
That's awesome. I was telling Nolar Bear that I'd never done one of those things, but I kind of want to, you know? Like I understand that it's like a hard
Yeah,
trip because like yeah, like you say, you're sleeping on floors and like I mean I'm 40 years old, and after I've wrestled in a match, I usually want a soft place to lay down, you know?
Oh, and that's
Uh,
it. You want a shower, you want a hot shower and a good meal and lay down and do your thing. And you don't get that on the death tour. You get a
mhm.
bird bath in some places and you get shared accommodations and you're heating up, whatever. Luckily, though, there's a lot of camaraderie. Obviously, everybody bonds very quickly on the tour. We had a great group of people and they were shooting a documentary at the time. So we got to have a lot of fun. It was very atypical, an atypical tour, I've been told.
Right on, right on. That's solid. I also like I love to wrestle in front of children. You know,
Yeah.
I'm very popular with children and drunk people, and one day I really, really want to wrestle in front of some drunk children.
Ah, yeah, that's the crossover for sure. That's what you're gonna need is absolutely that's hilarious because that's
Yeah.
what it is. That's the cross section of perfect wrestling fans is the drunk people and the kids.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of like I know that Chris Jericho did some voiceover narration for the documentary and whatnot. Did he spend any time? Like, did he come out to any of these dates or anything? Did you get a chance to meet him while you were there, or was that solely something you did while you were on his cruise ship?
So I've known Chris through the cruise, like exclusively. He came on the project afterwards as executive producer. So he sort of oversaw that during the post production and things. So he didn't actually come out to any of the dates on the tour. We didn't actually see him on the tour itself. Excuse me, but he was there in Salt Lake City, Utah, when they did the premiere at Slam Dance. So he was actually part of the panel there with a few of my co-stars that were in the movie as well.
Nice. And like you say, you know him from the cruise. Are you the one that like got him hooked up with the project, or was this?
No, not at all. So this is totally Chris being Chris, and his experience with Tony, his experience with pro wrestling and in Winnipeg and with the tour. So I think the makers of the film sought him out, and they were able to go to AEW when they were in Winnipeg, and they actually talked to him and Omega for the documentary during that episode.
Awesome. Who were the makers of the film, and have they made any other films that we might know about?
So Stefan Peterson and Sonia Ballantyne are the directors of the film, and I'm not sure if they've done anything else in this vein. I know this is the first wrestling foray they've done. Sonia is a big wrestling fan, and so Stefan, when he knew he was going to make this film, I think that's when he brought her in, and the rest is history because these guys, they're such a fun team. They called me up, I believe it was fall, the previous fall, and said, "Hey, we've seen what you're doing with Totally Arctic Wrestling, and we would love to have you in this movie, as an Indigenous wrestler. Would you like to be on the Death Tour?" And I was like, what? Yeah, cool. So they put me in with the bookers. I sent them my tape, and I got in with Massive Damage and with Tony Condello, and there we go.
Solid, solid. So was that your first foray outside of TAW?
So that was my second actually. So what I've done was I've now I'm literally sort of in the middle, right? Is where Nola Bear has been to Thrash. He's done Big West. He's done RCW, and I got him that booking in Boca Raton just recently. So I was actually in Boca Raton last year. I wrestled Cheeseburger there, and what an
Nice.
amazing experience that was. That
Solid.
was so cool. So to be able to share a locker room with like NXT stars, people I've seen on TV, people you grow up with, like Hacksaw was there. It was really cool. It was super cool. So I've only done the one Florida show, and then I went to Manitoba for 8. So I've done 9 shows outside of TAW now, which is not a lot, but I mean I've only had like 30 matches. So to have a third of those outside of the territory, I'm pretty happy about that.
Like, I mean, that's actually like not bad at all because like I know a lot of wrestlers that only wrestle in like their hometown, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Well, it's
I, I
comfortable.
I'm with RCW and we got guys that don't leave Edmonton. Like we'll do tours in Calgary and Edmonton and hey, as long as I can get a ride, I'll go anywhere they want me to go, you know?
Yeah,
But yeah, I do know people that are just like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that show because it's in Calgary. It's like Calgary's like 2 hours away, man. Like it's
yeah.
not, yeah, like it's not that bad. But
And that's it. And that's what I would love is I would absolutely love to be down there. And that's I've been told this for my comedy, for my wrestling, for radio, for everything that I've been trying to pursue is that it's just my geographical location is working against me. The fact that I could get booked so many more times as a comedian, as a wrestler, if I was living somewhere more accessible like Edmonton, somewhere where I could get back and forth to places for a few $100s in a
Mhm.
couple hours as opposed to a few $1,000s. So
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was driving at is that it's got to be like super inconvenient and expensive for you to actually get places, and so you must have to have like a sponsorship set up for something like that, you
you
know?
do honestly, and that's what it comes down to is local businesses have been super cool about bringing people in for TAW, which is awesome. I've gotten sponsorships to go out, which is great. But for the main part, and I think Noel does this as well, is you have to piggyback on other stuff. So like the Jericho cruise made sense for me to get a booking before that. Death Tour right after I piggybacked on that. I did an acting workshop here before my last cruise, so that kind of piggybacked off of that. It's just been a whole lot of like you make things work, right? Like you just
Yeah.
when I realize I'm gonna be in a city for a place, like I'm going to Yellowknife next week, I'm gonna try to set up, a mic, I want to do a comedy show, maybe make a couple of bucks. You know what I mean? So
So how did you get involved in filmmaking and comedy and whatnot? Like, I mean, is there like a film school in the Northwest Territories there?
So not at all, actually. There's film studies in Yellowknife, which is the capital, right? Our capital city, Yellowknife, has
Mhm.
20,000 people. And so growing up here in Inuvik, of 3,000 people, we didn't have any of that. So every year I would go and I'd be a little nerd, and we would do our Skills Canada territorial competition would take place in Yellowknife. So regionally, we would all like pick a skill, whether it be carpentry or small engine repair, or they did film and they had all kinds of stuff, but we couldn't practice that, so we couldn't enter them. One year they offered graphic design, so I did that. Sorry, web design. So actually, I got to go to Yellowknife and build a website on a computer there, and I came in second place. Because the kid from Yellowknife was much better than I was, but that was sort of my first experience with it was in high school, making short films. So I've been making short films since high school. I'm 41 now, so we're looking at 21 years. Sort of out of high school, 22 years. Graduated at 19. I graduated late, and I was the cool kid that could buy booze at the grad party, so that was fun.
Solid, solid. I mean, that's like I sorry, pardon me. I just gonna say that I think that's very interesting that you're able to get involved in all that stuff, and like has your ability to do web design and stuff helped you out with TAW with like promoting your shows and whatnot?
Oh God, yeah. Well, everything that I've done, everything that we do at TAW is based off of like my production skills with Neverlow Studios, which is my production house. That my sort of comedy group, my comedy sort of brand that I made was Neverlow Studios. So everything we do, from the production values of graphic design, is done by me in house. I do all the video editing, shooting the vignettes, and now we've just recently at our last shows we've gotten a really cool switcher app. So I'm able to like sit there like, Vince or Kevin Dunn and Gorilla and look at this little phone and say, camera B, no, camera C. Let's go to logo, hit this now, right? So it's super fun. We're very much bare bones. I think every pro wrestling organization is pretty bare bones.
Yeah,
Uh,
other than like WWE and AEW, those people have like lots
exactly.
of money, but
When
I
you
guess
get the money in there, when you get the
yeah.
money, that's when you start to get more comfort. But right now, we're not paying anything. We're all making sort of, we go show by show, but we've made agreements that we're putting the money back into the organization here, right? Like we're not
Mhm.
taking even POs. We're giving POs out to the people that we bring in, but the core group of us put our money back into the Fed, the Fed. Uh, and it goes to booking the next ticket, because it costs $2,000 to bring somebody in. It costs $400, $500 to keep them accommodated. If we can't, I would love to just say, hey, Kyle, there's a couch for you up here. Except
Mhm.
I want to make it it's more of a working vacation. So we have a really nice partnership with the bed and breakfast, and they have a very nice room that's like comfortable. Because, like I said, when you're done working these shows, you want to go somewhere comfortable and your own space. The last thing I
Mhm.
would want to do is put somebody up in my house, in my space, where they can't have their own privacy and they're sharing accommodation. You know what I mean? It happens. You can't avoid it sometimes, but we always try to give a hotel accommodation and hook them up with food, like country foods and stuff. So we had Matt Cross up here, and Matt and Mitch Clark. We got to feed them caribou meat for dinner, and then we went out and saw the Northern Lights. So Matt's post was belly full of caribou meat under the Northern Lights. This is truly Arctic. Like, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I know Mitch Clark. Did you get a chance to wrestle with him?
I didn't get a chance to wrestle Mitch because I'm smart. I didn't. I get to book myself away from that. No, Mitch is great. Mitch is awesome. Mitch showed me some stuff there in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He's a strong, powerful dude. He is
Yeah,
very
he
strong.
is I like Mitch, but I do find him to be incredibly intimidating. I was booked, against him in a match once, and I was so paranoid that I was going to accidentally potato him or something and just get murdered. But
He's
he's
cool dude.
very
He's such a nice,
professional, and
soft-spoken dude, though, too. You know,
yeah, he's, like, super professional, and he's used to getting hit hard, so he probably just wouldn't murder you if you did, but, like,
and
the
that's
only
it.
yeah, like,
But he also he has a way about himself. He carries himself in a way where you don't want to try. You don't want to mess with it. You're just gonna do your
yeah.
best, and you're gonna, be snug, but be safe, right?
Yeah, 100%, and, like, I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that goes around trying to test people's, like,
Oh
whether or
God,
not
no.
they're a good shoot fighter because 'cause I'm not,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like
I cannot back that up. Like I've never. It was one of the funniest things when Marty and Ace were, showing us what to do and showing us the ropes, and I'm learning from Marty because he's like, he looks at me and says, "You've never thrown a punch before, have you?" And I'm like, "No, I have not, sir. Like, I'm not a fighter." So there was a lot of work to be done. There was a lot of work to be done, which is why I
Mhm.
started off with a lot of forearms really quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I've found that like I will throw punches now, but I do kind of warn the person like you might get tagged in the neck. I might actually hit you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're gonna get, yeah,
Like,
exactly, right. But I
like
mean, that's the thing is,
I'm
and
not
that's kind of
trying
what.
to hurt you. I'm not trying to kill you, but like you might get touched for sure. You know. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
that's the one thing that we don't get, that we don't have, that you have as an indie wrestler in a big scene in the ocean, as we'll call it, of
mhm.
pro wrestling, is that you will wrestle somebody that you might not know. You will wrestle somebody that you've never met before, that you've never wrestled before, that you're just gonna have to say, "Hey, man, we're 2 hours to bell time. Figure it out. Be safe with me. I trust you." Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And whereas even when we bring a guy in, we're with you for a night or two beforehand,
yeah.
right? We're getting to know you a bit, or we've done chatting for a long time.
Mhm.
Very rarely, I don't think we've ever brought anybody in very blind. I even knew about Mitch years before we brought him in, right?
Yeah,
So there was a whole lot of building before, because it's not like we always, hey man, and I'll say this to anybody watching this, the door's always open, right? The door is always open if somebody wants to come up to TAW and pay their way up and be a part of the shows and show us things and learn and do whatever and experience the culture. We're absolutely here for it. Now, have we had anybody bring themselves up yet? Not yet, right? It's been a lot of sponsorships. It's been us raising money, and it's been us out of pocket in a lot of ways. My wife and I are still recovering credit cards from 5 years ago because I'm horrible at that shit. you
I'm
know, like,
I'm not good at that stuff either.
yeah, but that's it. So, like, we knew we wanted to put on a show. We knew we had to get tickets booked, and so I said, "Fuck it." And unfortunately, somebody, rest in peace. They made some promises to us that didn't come through, and they never came through, and then he passed away. But there was a lot, there was a lot of stuff that gets promised in this industry. People want to
Mhm.
help you, people, and I'm not talking about even the malicious side of it and the predatory side of it. I'm talking about just life happens side of it. You
Yeah.
know, a local business wants to help us out by giving me $2,500 to start out, but he can't anymore. That's now we're just going to pay that back because, we have to. The money's gone now, right? So that's kind of like how TAW started. It was just very small. It was a very small idea that we had that has grown into something that I think is bigger than we thought it was going to be, and it's awesome.
How many like actual wrestling matches have you had? Do you know?
I have had 32. I've been in 32 matches myself.
Okay,
And that
solid.
is like just over 5 years. That's like some of them were five, like you know what I mean? Some of these were like, yeah, this is but yeah, so 32, I believe, is where I'm at right now.
Okay, okay. I mean, that's like given your location and whatnot, and the frequency of shows going on in your area, like that's nothing to scoff at for sure.
And that's sort of where it's
Um,
come down to is because even with stand-up comedy, right? Like I've done stand-up comedy 19 times, and that's over 5 years. Some people do stand-up comedy 19 times in a month. They'll do 19 times in a week if they could.
oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. No,
you know,
I'm pretty sure. Like since I've returned from my ACL surgery on, I think it was like December the 17th or something. It was right before Christmas is when I made my return from ACL surgery, and since then I've had like 10 or 12 matches, you
yeah,
know, and
yeah.
it's only been a month. So
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You just find where they are. And some
yeah,
nights it's like, hey man, do you want to get booked again? Yes. You
yeah,
say yes,
yeah,
you got it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But like I'm just saying, the only reason I've had that frequency is because those opportunities are there for me, you know?
Well,
Um,
and the thing is too, is I've found out like just from the booking end of it, as well as being in comedy, is that, if you're a good guy, if you're nice and you're good to deal with and you're easy to work with, people will call
mhm,
you back. You don't have to
yeah,
be the best wrestler, the best comedian, the funniest guy, the biggest draw. People
yeah,
will call
no,
you back if you're good to work with.
yeah, 100%. Like, I know lots of like people that are, maybe they're not like, they're not Chris Benoit or Kurt Angle level of wrestling skill, but they're people are entertained by them and they're not
Yeah.
assholes to you. So like,
And they're good people to be around.
yeah,
You want to
yeah.
grow with them. You want to see them succeed, you know?
Mhm.
And that's
One of
exactly,
my biggest philosophies right now is gratitude is the attitude. I feel like that goes a long way with people. Like there's
no, absolutely.
a lot of folks that just don't get like they don't get their due. Like and like the Vic who helps drive the ring truck for RCW. Like he doesn't get enough thanks for it. And yeah, he's grouchy because he's old and he's taking care of the ring and stuff, but at the end of the day, like the homeboy is like, yeah, literally like 80 years old and he works on the rate. Like he's grouchy because he's in pain, but he's in pain because he works so hard for the company. And I think that people need to be more thankful to him and like just even other people that are like, videographers or the guy that runs the music or the girl that takes people's tickets. Like I think that those people all deserve a little bit more recognition than they actually get.
Absolutely, man. And that's what you realize when there's only four people doing all of those jobs you just mentioned, you
Mhm.
know, is that you realize that yes, we do need to thank the people that are taking their time out. Because, like we said, for us, I'm not I'm not paying somebody a wage that's going to be worth of their time to even be there for the 2 hours we need them for. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
no,
Unfortunately.
most people, like, are not in like, I don't know, I can't speak for most people, but I can speak for myself, and I can tell you I'm not in professional wrestling because of how lucrative it is.
And that's
Uh,
exactly it. You're not here to
it's
make yeah,
yeah, like, don't get me wrong, I like to make money, and if you're gonna pay me more money, I'll like you more, but,
yeah,
also, like, I've done some really fun shows for, like, 20 bucks, you know,
yeah,
and it's a great time. I've done somewhere it's like, yeah, we're all putting in that effort. There was one show in Calgary I did where I wrestled, I worked the music, and I was the ring announcer. And it was like I ring announced from backstage so people couldn't tell. So like I ring it, oh, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the ring, the Canadian
yeah.
Goose. Here, hold this while I go wrestle.
We did
Like,
that literally. Wavell Star
yeah,
did that exact thing during the tour. Exactly. Is
yeah.
behind the curtain and he's like, up next, Wavell Star. And then he's like, hold the microphone.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, like, the fact that you got such a good group of folks that are willing to go and just do it for the love of the game is really, really commendable.
It's something else. It really is. It's been awesome. Blue, myself, Devin, Dagger, Nolar Bear, and Marty. We had a guy, Jared, initially early on. We did an open call out when we first started in the summer of 2019. We did an open call out to the community. We put up posters, Blue and I, and we were like, we were starting totally Arctic wrestling, professional wrestling, in Inuvik. Do you want to be a part of it? Do you want to be a character? Do you want to be any sort of part of it? Let us
Mhm.
know. We had one person show up to our open meeting, and it was this guy from down south, from out east, and he's a judo. He's like I forget what belt he is in judo, but he's good at judo. And he just wanted to make friends. He wasn't a pro wrestling fan at all, but he joined every club in Inuvik that offered because he wanted to make friends. So he came and he liked us, and so we liked him, and we got along great. But he was a fighter. He was not a showman. He was not a wrestler. So
Okay.
like you threw him
Okay.
down, and he popped right up, and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
sell it, dude. You got to sell it. Like you gotta. There's this isn't going to advance until we're both ready to go, right?
100%. There's definitely been points where like I don't know. I can really see that somebody who's used to like legitimately getting hit and reacting in a way like
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah,
you have to unlearn that skill because like like I was saying
and
with
that was
Mitch,
the
if
biggest
I
thing was
potato you by accident and you just murder me, that's a
yeah.
problem, you
Well,
know.
that was the big thing is he knew getting him to unshoot his throws was tough, you know.
Mhm.
So that was a big thing for him. But he was a larger than life character, man. He really was. He just literally we said to him, we said, "Do you have any ideas for like a character you want to be?" And he said, "No." And I said, "What if we called you Jared California, and you were a surfer dude that came up to surf the Arctic Ocean, and now you're looking for money to get home, and you'll do anything, so you'll take up pro wrestling." And he jumped right in. He this guy, when once we sort of set the course for the ship, he jumped on, like he was calling us with like, come shoot this new vignette, and the whole storyline about him being a homeless man in the north trying to find his way home. He found this old abandoned like oil ship or something, and he was living in it. And so we shot all these vignettes of him living in this old ship. We had so much fun with him. He was such an awesome dude. And then of course, because of the north, term contracts, work comes up back home. He wants to be back home closer to family, so he moved back east.
Jerry California went back to California.
Jared, yeah. So that was the funny part is once we realized that Jared was going to leave, we were like, well, let's make this part of the storyline, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, Marty Sugar was here living in Inuvik, and we said, what if we made it that both of these guys want to leave? So it's a winner leaves town match where there's a plane ticket on the line, and they're
That's
both fighting for it. And Jared beat him, and it was so fucking funny, dude. It was like so many people have said, I don't think we've ever seen a winner leaves town match
no,
before.
there's been tons of loser leaves town matches, but yeah, that's the first I've ever heard of. Okay, the winner gets to leave. Like
Yeah,
that, feel like that would be a good angle for like if the match was taking place in a prison or something, like
that's it. The remoteness of it, right? It became we played it up. We were like, they both talked about being so far from home. The promos
w-
leading up to the match was awesome. You know,
were were they both heels? Like,
yeah. So
did they
that's
get
what
a
ended up happening.
babyface reaction for being
That's
like,
what
yeah,
ended up
I don't
happening
like it
was
here?
that Marty was heel, and then Jared ended up turning as well, because he was like, no, I gotta leave. Like I'm just gonna leave, and it was kind of like a double turn in a way.
Huh. Did the match go over well? Like, did it get a good response? Because I've done baby versus baby matches
Yeah,
before, and it's kind of a struggle. But a heel versus heel match to me, I wouldn't even want to attempt it because it's like who are they going to cheer for? You know, like
Yeah, well, that's
they don't
what
want to see
happened.
either person win. You know.
So that match was actually, so what ended up happening was during the pandemic. So we started TAW in 2019, November 2019. We had,
That's not good timing.
well, right. So we had
Yeah.
Ace, we had Marty up, we had big show in November. The whole town is talking about it. We're all in on it. And then I'm like, our next show is going to be in April of 2020. And everybody was like, yeah. And then the pandemic hit, and we're like, okay, it's going to be in June of 2020. And it was like, okay, it's going to be in October. Okay, look, we're just not going to have it in 2020. Okay. Like, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen in 2020. But by that point, Marty was up here. Uh, we were already sort of dealing with, and so then what ended up happening was, the pandemic, the territories, NWT had these rules where you couldn't be with anybody outside of your household, and there was like a 5 people limit of who was in your circle, and it was like they can't stop you from touching your partners or like your roommates or being in contact with those people.
Mhm.
So so to get around this and to start wrestling, we were given a free space in Inuvik. It's an uninsulated warehouse where we shot all of our episodes of what we called Saturday Night Skoden, the show, the episodic show we would do.
Yeah.
So we started like wrestling. We invited some people to come in. We were wearing masks. The whole crew is wearing COVID masks. The wrestlers aren't, because we were like, I shot this. So I had this idea. I said, Noel and Jared and Blue, I said, I want you guys to move into my house, right? We're all gonna be roommates.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
after we're done filming this thing, we're gonna fall apart and we're gonna have to, you guys are gonna get kicked out. So they were like, okay. So we had this whole plan ready to go for the government about these men live with me, they can touch me because we live together. Um, so it was a whole lot of emails back and forth to the government about when can we put on a live show? What's that going to look like? What's this going to look like? What's that going to look like? So when Jared and Marty did their match, it was pretty much like in front of 10 people, I think. So
Okay. Yeah, no, we did like when that pandemic happened here, we had similar rules at certain points. And then there was sometimes when we were allowed to have, I think, a maximum of 50 people in the venue, but the
yeah,
chairs all had to be spread around.
yeah,
And then there was other times where we didn't have any fans, but we were filming stuff.
that's
And
right.
I tell you, I absolutely do not like the no fans thing. I
No.
mean, like literally, like all my shtick is crowd work. So then when I'm
Yeah,
standing in there in an
right.
empty building going honk, 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 and no one's doing it back, and then
Yeah,
and somebody picks me up, it gives me a razor's edge or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm feeling every little part of that. And yeah, there's no adrenaline kicking in here. I'm not getting cheered
that's
for
exactly
this sucks.
that is
You know?
exactly it, dude. That's exactly it. There's no adrenaline. There's nobody to build off of. We were lucky in the sense that we only had the one show in front of a live crowd before the pandemic. So we did not know pro wrestling before the pandemic. Really, that's kind of how we
Yeah.
grew up into this. So we were born in an empty room. We did the whole canned. I got an audio track WrestleMania audio, 70,000 people. So it's like, yeah, yeah, like, so we're dubbing over audio and shit because it's brutal too. I don't want to pull back too far of a curtain here, but when everything you say to somebody is so fucking loud because you're in an empty room, then you really can't communicate with people, and it's hard. So it's
Mhm.
like, good job, guy, or one more time, and you're like, okay, how are we gonna mask this audio now? Like,
Yeah, yeah, no, the pandemic was a real rough time in pro wrestling, and then like, of course, because like Edmonton is like a big city, and Calgary is as well, and like it was very hard to escape the pandemic without actually contracting COVID at one point or another. And like I remember, I did actually get COVID, and when I had my first match back, it was rough. like there, it was difficult to breathe. It was down in Calgary. I wrestled Tony Machete, and I remember I was at a certain point in that match. I was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna puke," you know. And then
Wow.
I didn't actually puke. I was able to pull it together, but like just like being blown up, you were like 10 times worse than you normally would be. And it was really rough. But I'm happy that time is over now. So since the pandemic ended, how many shows have you had an opportunity to do? And obviously, you must prefer wrestling in front of fans, eh?
Oh man, absolutely. Well, that's what it's about, right? That's exactly what
Mhm.
it's about. So we ended up out of the pandemic when we started doing live shows again. We had, I think, our first show in front of a crowd was that summer where we crowned Marty as champion. We were waiting for a live audience for that one. So Marty was crowned our first champ, and then we did another show that fall, or yeah. So we had two shows that year in 2021, I want to say, and then in 2022, we just smashed it. We went hard. I think we did 5 or 6 shows that year. We would bring up like we would bring in people for a weekend, and then we would just do a Saturday and a Sunday, or a Friday and a Saturday show.
Mhm. Yeah,
So that,
Nolar Bear was telling me about when you guys brought in Kat and Ava, who they do
yeah,
RCW pretty regularly. I know them quite well. I've
yeah,
wrestled both of them. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so that must have been one of those situations, eh? When you got was were bringing people in and whatnot.
Yeah, so that was our last set of shows we actually did was with Kat and Ava and Justin when we brought them all in. But because of airfare, so this is another thing, right? It bottlenecks is airfare becomes an issue about available seats and Aeroplan and deals. So for that weekend, we always try to bring everybody in on a Thursday or the Friday. We run a show on Friday night, and then we take a day off on Saturday, and then we have Sunday, or there's a day in there somewhere where we can just kind of show people around.
Mhm.
When we brought in Justin, we had him in for the full weekend, but because of Aeroplan, my wife bought the tickets for Ava and Kat to come in. We were
And that
only able to get them in on Saturday, so
that
they
was that was Justin Sider, right?
yes, that's right.
Okay, cool. Because I think yeah, no, I'm yeah, yeah, okay. I know another Justin that is associated with those folks.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yes, we're not talking about anybody. We're not talking about the healer just yet, but we
Yeah,
will. We will at one point here.
you
Um,
should. Yeah,
oh
no,
no, we
he would
want to.
he's absolutely fantastic,
Oh
in my
man, well, I've
personal
been a
opinion.
fan of
Yeah,
him for years. Like heavy
yeah.
metal and just the rest of it has been definitely. He's been on my radar for a long time. There's been so many people on my radar, honestly, that I wanted to bring up. We were so close to bringing up Jesse Youngblood last year.
Oh, he would be
Couldn't make it
fantastic
happen.
too.
Big Jesse would be awesome.
Mhm.
There's so many. The list goes on. Like
Yeah,
I said,
and
if I could have,
especially, like, guys like Metal and Jess and, like, I would put MRB on that list.
yeah,
Those are people that can teach you stuff. Like, I
and that's
wrestled them
exactly it.
when I was super green,
Yeah,
and, like, I still am really, like, greed and not like great, but those guys they know how to get basically anybody through a match. So like,
yeah.
yeah, if you've only had 30 matches, like those are the people you want to be in the ring with because you will
And that's
have like
exactly it.
your
Those are the
best
guys, like you
matches.
said,
Yeah.
people that can give us seminars, guys that'll lead and listen, like and give us good pointers. And that's what we want to do is we want to bring people up and learn a lot. I did want to say though, when we started Totally Arctic Wrestling, the point was never to be the show. The point was never for me to wrestle. It was never to show Arctic wrestling in that regard. What I wanted to do was I wanted to make a brand that I could have in my home and bring in professionals that I could watch wrestling
Mhm.
in the front row and say,
Okay.
this is wrestling in the North.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we got to have Mitch Clark versus Matt Cross, I did exactly that. I was I did the commentary, but I'm also in the second row. If you find me in the taping,
S-
because I'm a fan first.
yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of guys like Nolar Bear wants to wrestle, Blue wants to wrestle. Like I said, I want to manage, I want to own the place, I want to run the show, I want to be the presenter, I want to open it. But I don't want to do the work. And that's what it comes down to is I don't want to be
Yeah.
in the gym. And that's why I've taken a step back is because I'm not in the gym. I'm not taking care of my body the way I should. My right knee has been pooched since before we started this, from injuries from before this, you know.
Yeah.
So that came up really badly in a lot of ways and has stunted my growth in the ring. And I'm not picking that slack up. I don't have the dedication, and I just don't have it in me. I'm not doing it, and I'm
Well,
not afraid to do it.
I think it's really good that you're able to recognize that, and you're not just, like, there's maybe like a few people
Oh,
that,
I believe it. You see them all over.
where it's like this guy really isn't willing to do much work, but he's still on all the shows, and
And
it's
that's exactly it. And that's
yeah,
exactly what it is the guy maybe whether they are politicking their way in there or maybe they're just an old vet that just
mm,
hasn't been keeping up with it, but they're still in the ring. And it's like that stuff that like, in the death tour doc, when I wrestled Massive Damage, he's like, okay, let's go through our match. He's like, can you do this? I said, no. Have you done this? I said, no. What about this? No. Can you do this? No. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to cut myself off then, right? I'll just miss a clothesline in the corner and that'll be the cutoff, you know? So
yeah,
it's like, it's things that like, if I'm not comfortable doing stuff, I'm not going to put somebody else's safety in any kind of harm, you know?
yeah. No,
So
I
I'm taking the bow out and I'm just saying, look, I'd much rather manage Noel and be his mouthpiece that I think he needs at this point to help him along. And he's a phenomenal wrestler, but I would love to be his mouthpiece.
yeah,
I would love to be the talking for Noel and just let him be the strong, silent type, and I'm the one out there just getting the fucking, just pushing the agenda. You know,
yeah.
so we
I
have
th
goals.
I do think that that's good that you're actually, like, recognizing that, but I also think that it's admirable that even though you recognize that, you also recognize when you need bodies on these shows. So, if you gotta put on the
Well,
tights and get in there for the sake of
and
Noller
that's
Bear having somebody to wrestle, then
and
I
that's it.
think
And
I
that's
think
is
it's
I'm
great.
not in any way. I'm not tied up to my ego in the sense I'm like I need to wrestle. I need to be on the posters. But like you said, I can be the jobber. I can be the guy that gets dummied because I've got enough training. I can bump safe. I can take care of myself and I can take care of my partners. I'm not going to do something that I can't do. I'm not
Mhm,
going to put you up in moves that I don't know because I'm not going to do, like a fucking, what's the word I'm even looking for here now? You know what I mean? Like there's,
yeah,
yeah, gorilla presses. Like I'm not gonna because I don't have the strength for it. There's stuff that
yeah,
I'm not gonna
no,
do to somebody because
I know.
I'm not gonna hurt you. But at the same time, I can still take a beating and I can put you over. I'll
Yeah,
show ass and I'll put you over easily. You know, so throw me in there. Like I love what Marty does. Sorry, I love what Marty does with Big West is that he's got characters that he can use that are just off the wall. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like
I went and wrestled for Marty. I actually beat him for the Big West, championship once, and
nice.
it's the only, like, singles championship I ever held, and I only held it for 1 day, but I absolutely have all the
Was that the red
admiration.
strap, the Big West TV title, or was there a different one?
It was when I got it, it was called the Big West Internet, Championship, and
You
that
got
was
that.
because it was right, after the pandemic had just ended and, Marty had started running shows again, and
Awesome.
yeah, but as far as I knew, there was no other championships in the promotion, so it was
And
like,
that was it.
"Oh,
That's all he's been running is the Internet Championship now. It
yeah."
was previously he had the television title in there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
cool.
I'm really actually really stoked to hopefully go back and wrestle for Marty again soon. Like even to this day, if you ever watch like Talk Down or anything, like my video of me honking to the crowd is like the
Yeah,
first thing
I
you
see
see
that.
on.
I just actually
Yeah,
just watched the last talk down. I saw that too, and that's
yeah.
awesome. It's like then now forever honk honk honk.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It makes me very, very happy. And I like I say, I love wrestling with guys like Marty and stuff who, maybe you're not like workhorse work rate guys or whatever, but like they're entertaining and they know like they have a good knowledge of like the psychology of a match and stuff, like how to be a heel and get people angry or how to be a baby face and get people stoked and happy. Like those are important skills, like arguably more important than do you know how to do 75 different versions of an arm drag,
And that's
like
what it comes down to. Is it's like, especially like I said, when we started working matches up here, I think Matt
mhm.
Cross was one of the first. I mean, obviously, and Marty and everybody else that worked before him had said it, but you sort of see it from Matt Cross, who's been all over the world, and he's very, very proficient. Like he's a high flyer.
Oh
He
yeah,
said,
Matt Cross is amazing. I
yeah,
like I was telling Nola Bear, I remember watching matches of him in CZW in like 2003 where he'd wrestle Josh Prohibition on every show. And they would just do insane shit that you like. I even to this day is like some of the most crazy and wild stuff I've ever seen.
yeah. And so that's it exactly. Is so he's done the wildest with anybody's ever seen. And he said when he was doing our first show with us in Inuvik, he got up to the top rope and he stood up. And he said while he was standing up, the pop was so loud that he just stood there for a second and that he didn't have to do anything. He
Yeah,
just
he
he's like
didn't
it's been
have to
so
do a
long.
630 splash off there.
Yeah.
He could have jumped off with a standard flying elbow and they probably would have lost their minds,
And that's exactly it. That's exactly what it was. Is he said it'd been so long since he'd heard a pop for just standing up on the top rope that it almost like was like took him out of it for a second. Like what?
Mhm. Like
Um,
I've been accused occasionally of being kind of carny in the ring, and my rebuttal is, well, have you ever gone to a carnival and not had a good time? Like,
yeah, I had we had a match. Blue and I had a hardcore match up in Tuck when Cheeseburger lost the title. So I lost the title on Friday, and Noel won it from Cheeseburger on Sunday. So he was a real transitional champ for us.
mhm,
Um,
yeah,
and
like the
I got to
Canadian
fight.
Goose and Big West.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I got to fight Blue Wilder in a hardcore match, and I said, Blue, I really want to go fucking hardcore clown here this time. And he said, okay, we'll go clown. And his cousin ended up getting his cousin to draw clown makeup on my face with lipstick, and Blue is like parading me around the ring, and he's like, "Go ahead, you want to be a clown? Tell them a joke. Tell them a joke, clown." And I said, "Blue Wilder walks into a bar, and then he punches me in the stomach." I said, "Tell them the joke. Give them the punchline." And then and I look up and I say, "You are the punchline, Blue." And he just takes me out. It's so much fun,
I feel
It's
like
so much
that
fun.
would have been great if you actually had, like, a metal bar you could have hit him with.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
yeah.
uh, yeah, that's fantastic. What is your favorite match that you've had so far?
I mean, I think definitely my favorite match that I've done, hands down, is Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. Last year before the Jericho Cruise, I wrestled Cheeseburger in a hair versus hair match, and afterwards, Brutus Beefcake shaved me bald.
Oh,
So
love I met Brutus Beefcake, he's an interesting guy.
he
Yeah.
is. He came up here to Inuvik as well. So I actually got that match was uh, um, Aiden English actually did commentary on that one, and
Oh,
so I was really
cool.
stoked. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was really stoked.
that's always like one of the things, like, because I primarily wrestle for RCW, and it's very much like live shows. There's
Yeah,
not really a camera. Like we have a guy that films the matches from ringside and stuff,
yeah,
and sometimes we have a hard camera set up, but we don't generally get like a commentary and stuff. With LPW, we do, and I did on one show I did for Danny Duggan's Canadian Wrestling Elite. They
nice.
had a like a pay-per-view gimmick in Manitoba that I went for, and that match has commentary, and like it makes me so happy when you hear the commentators talking about it, even if like they're not like super famous guys. Like I have no
It's
idea
so
who
cool.
those dudes from
Yeah,
Manitoba were, but they
but
did
it's
they
so
did a
cool.
good job.
They
You
tell a
know?
story. They
Yeah.
do. What you need is you need it. You need the commentators there to fill the gaps, to give context and background and emotion, because they're the ones that are like Dez has been chasing this dream for so long. You see it in his face. You see how much he wants it. They're spoon feeding you. They're holding your hand through the story, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
And I
so
think
that's why it's so good.
it's helpful too because like one of the things that I've been taught a lot, you know, one of the old adages of professional wrestling is slow down, and
Yeah,
if you think you're going too slow, slow down
slow
some
down
more, and
more.
you're probably still going too fast, right? Like
Yeah,
but one of the things that MRB has often taught me is like, hey, like while you're doing your match, imagine that there's commentaries talking. And so, like, you don't
yeah,
want to be going a mile a minute. Otherwise, they don't have any chance to actually explain what's happening. They
and
can
that's
just be like,
exactly it.
oh, arm drag, hit Hurricane Rana, hip toss. Like, you know,
Yeah,
like that's gonna get old real quick. So you got to have those moments of brevity where you're just like, and it's a good moment for you to take to breathe. You know,
and that's the
get your
big thing too
wind.
is working smarter. I
Mhm.
think it was the big one. Luckily for me, it's funny because watching Nola Bear is very athletic. His style is very athletic. Blue Wilder, very technical. His style is very methodical. He puts a lot into his moves, and I'm just like the big, gassed out, just brute. Just I'll club you down. I'm gonna club you a couple more times. I'll pick you up and I'll club you down some more, and then I'm gonna give you another club. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
club sandwich here. Is what's gonna happen.
Solid. Well, we are at the hour, but I have like just a couple of more questions
Yeah,
because you did mention that you've done stand-up comedy and whatnot. I'm just curious because have you done any like improv?
yeah. So improv, like definitely right out of high school, we had drama class in there. There was an improv group in town, so we met with them outside of school. And then like sketch comedy has been something that I've pursued for a long time. So like making my own sketches. Definitely, I haven't done any like theater improv. That'd be super cool to do, but just in classes and stuff.
Cool. Because I used to do a lot of improv when I was just like coming out of high school. I did classes and stuff too, and then I did some like actual like shows that we got paid to do
Yeah.
them and stuff. And I found that improv has helped me tremendously in wrestling,
Oh
like
yes.
tremendously. Like I am happy to go out there with a planned match and do that. And I actually like I do prefer to have like a fairly solid plan going into pretty
Yeah.
much every match. But there has been situations where like I've walked up to a guy and been like, "Hey man, we're wrestling tonight. What do you want to do?" And the guy's like, "You know how to wrestle. I'll see you out there in the ring." Like the first time that happened to me, I was like,
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm just gonna do improv with this guy, and if he expects me to go out there and do a bunch of crazy moves, he's gonna be pretty disappointed. But
Yeah.
like at that point, you just have to like break it down into like, okay, beginning, middle, end, get shine, heat, come back, like all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, and I think that that's been tremendously helpful. What other ways can has your stand-up comedy and whatnot helped you transition into professional wrestling?
So I think definitely public speaking, being a politician, being on the radio, being in news and media for so long, really helped me with my promos. It helped me talk. It helped me really express myself and register. I did acting. I've done acting classes and stuff too. So you learn. You sort of learn that this isn't just a performance. This isn't just a feat of athletics. This isn't just a fight. This is also a performance in a lot of ways, and that's sort of what you forget though, because I love it. And this comes naturally to me doing this, doing comedy, being in front of a camera. It's all natural to me. So when I say to other people around me in my community, hey, you can do this too. And they're like, no, 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 I can't. Or I'm not athletic enough, or I'm not funny enough, or I'm too shy. And it's like, I'm not athletic. I don't think a lot of people don't think I'm funny. I think I'm hilarious. And I'm just not shy. There's something about it that's just like, but I don't have a very thick skin. And that's the other side of this fucking coin that
Yeah.
sucks, is because you're putting yourself in tights and you're throwing yourself in the most vulnerable of places, and you're putting yourself up above people. And that upward angle for me is horrible. It's the most unflattering angle I could possibly have. So, like, it takes a lot to put yourself out there, and then to remember that there's also, like you said, there's a plan, or at least a resemblance of a plan, and execute. but also make it look good, but then at the same time have fun. So you're
Yeah.
just throwing all that into the mix, and then you scramble it all around, and this is what comes out of it.
Um, um, Heavy metal once gave me this little nugget of advice, and I think it's a good way for us to kind of go off the show here. After I tell you what it is, we'll plug your podcast and whatnot.
Yes.
But Metal told me one day, because I was having a lot of trouble, like, I was scared to jump up to the top rope and do a springboard clothesline or whatever he was trying to get me to do that day. And he was like, "Well, why are you too scared?" And I was like, "Because I don't think I could do it." And he was like, confidence is free. And I think that's something I really, really think about a lot whenever I'm, like,
Huh.
scared to do something. I'm like, confidence is free. So, like, you don't have to pay to have confidence. And
True.
like, it's hard because it's not a natural thing for me, but yeah, I think that was one of the best things I've ever heard in professional wrestling. Um, like was saying, we were going to plug your podcast. So why don't you let the folks know where they can watch your podcast, where they can get a hold of you, where they can follow TAW, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. So check me out at Des Loreen Comedy on Facebook. Check us out, the Taryn and Des Show, TDS, on Facebook and Instagram. That's at TDS Pod or at the TDS Pod. Can't
Is that
remember which
Taryn
one.
from accounting?
No, this is Taryn, my friend Taryn from Alberta still, but it's a different Taryn, different spelling.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, you
Taryn
would have
from
definitely,
accounting.
it'd be more of a crossover for sure. There'd be definitely more of a crossover if it was TFA.
Yeah, she's
Um,
fantastic. I'm
he's
wrestling
awesome.
her on Thursday. I can't wait.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And then Totally Arctic Wrestling. We are at Totally Arctic Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram, and check us out on YouTube. All of our videos there are on YouTube, from the very first one we shot in June of 2019, where we didn't have an idea of where this was going to be going. We didn't even have a ring when we made that first episode.
Did you?
Literally, we grew in front of YouTube. So for the first 6 episodes, it was like, let's start a wrestling company. How are we going to do it? We need trainers. Okay, the trainers are here. Let's put on a show. That's like the first arc we did. So
Solid. Just to bookend it too with the beginning of the show. You guys eventually did get an actual wrestling ring, right? You're not
so we got
still
a ring
bumping
last
into
year. So
boxing
now
ring?
yeah. So we are using a pro wrestling ring right now that we got from Logan Cross in Saskatchewan. So
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know Logan Cross. Cool.
yeah.
Solid. Alrighty. Well, this has been Monday Night Shaw with Dez the Eskimofo, and I really appreciate you coming on here, and hopefully we'll get to do this again because it seems like we could chat for a little while longer for sure.
Oh man,
Um,
absolutely. There's so much we haven't even touched on, not even about ourselves. But if you're ever doing a show that you just want another voice on, I'm always happy to come back on. Thank you so much, man.
yeah, no, absolutely, and like I hope that you do get to find your way down here because I would be happy to wrestle with you or for you to, be involved in our match in a non wrestling capacity as well because like we're always looking for good people like that.
Cool, man. Appreciate that.
Alrighty. Hey, well, thank you, and yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to Rich King and RK Athletics for sponsoring the show, and thank you to Love Wrestling for hosting the show. And Des, we'll see you next time.
Awesome.